dispatch. These are calls that come into our dispatch center, which is run by Cressa. And these were compiled by our crime analyst. So I'll just go over some of the highlights here because I really want to open this up for discussion because I'm sure all of you came here for maybe a specific reason or specific issue that you're dealing with in your downtown area. So again, this will just be kind of stats for all offenses or all crimes reported or instances reported to police in the first 3 months of 2025. And then we'll go into some frequent nighttime locations, kind of the hotspot areas of where these offenses are occurring. And lastly, since it was brought up that wanted to be addressed, a lot of the noise issues specifically around kind of the downtown waterfront area. So it's a little small, so I hope you can read some of the stats, but I'm sure this will be available after the meeting, correct? Okay. So out of all the 6,000-ish calls that were called into the dispatch center for the first quarter, 440 of those would have been in Beat 11, which encompasses the downtown waterfront area. Just to give you some perspective of all the different calls, and see, you can see it all broken down here by type of call. Of those 6,000 plus calls, about 440 for the specific downtown waterfront area. And of those, as you'll see broken down later, of those 440 calls, you're going to see 24 of those were coded as noise violation or noise disturbance calls. This is a nice map to show kind of if you were to break down those 440 calls of where you would see hotspots. So typically you're going to see it where you're going to see a large congregation of people and or specific locations that would have a lot of call volume. So here you'll see the hotspot that's the biggest is going to be around the courthouse and the jail. That could be for numerous reasons. Either incidents occurring inside those two facilities are going to be sometimes reported as being in that location or anything around that general area. So. And the other hotspot's going to be the kind of near our main street where a lot of the bars and restaurants are. Again, you have a large congregation of people. There's typically going to be higher allocation of crime there. And of the nighttime offenses, so this is hours between 6 p.m. and 2 a.m., kind of what most people would associate with high crime area times of the day. You're going to see that most of these are going to be your bars, apartments, theaters, again, places where you're going to see a lot of people that maybe not usually interacting with each other come together. So it's not a real surprising stat, but just to show you kind of these are where most of the calls for service that do happen in District 1 during those nighttime hours happen. I don't know why it didn't go. There you go. So these are the locations here that would have been, you see, not other than the Brick House Bar and Grill, you're not going to see many of these other locations even have that high a call volume. It just shows you that of the 440 calls over the first 3 months of the year, they're pretty dispersed over all numerous locations. And then for a popular issue in especially the downtown waterfront area, you're going to see noise complaints. There's the 24. Majority of those were for vehicle. The rest of them you're going to see for general or my neighbor's making too much noise or loud music. Now, this doesn't encompass all complaints about noise in obviously the downtown waterfront area. None of these come in through various channels. You might be talking about these in city council to elected officials. You might be having conversations with maybe property managers if you're a resident there, or your landlord, or your neighbors, or you might be emailing the Vancouver Police Department or the city, and those come through other channels. So this doesn't encompass all complaints about noise in the downtown waterfront area. It's just ones that come into our dispatch that would be then showing up on the dispatch board for our officers to respond to. So it just gives you an idea that like this doesn't encompass obviously all of the complaints that come from or issues that come from our residents, but simply the ones that go to our officers directly through the dispatch center. And this is just another breakdown by kind of the time of day. See that again, it's mostly those nighttime hours. And then here you're going to see a little spot of where all the noise complaints, the 24 complaints are located. So again, you'll see that downtown area near Main Street, where all the Main Street and 6th to say 8th, a lot of the bars are down there. They get a lot of calls for noise complaints. And then obviously the waterfront area too. Again, a lot of restaurants, drinking establishments, and so forth. And now that's the end of my presentation. I'd like to open it up for discussion.
Waterfront, was it on that map? Is it not considered a hotspot?
No, not for reported crimes or offenses, no. So out of the 440, the 2 hotspots, I can go back to here just so we. This is the one you're talking about, sir? Okay, yes. So no, the waterfront does not have a large congregation of calls for service.
Yeah, I live at 6 in Maine, so I'm not surprised that being a hotspot. I just want to be mindful of the frustration being voiced by the waterfront. It doesn't seem to be translating into calls being reported.
Yeah, I would agree. It appears if, and that again, at other channels. So this is only going to encompass calls to the dispatch center, so 311 and 911. So yeah, if going by those alone, it's not a large volume of calls for service in this beat 11 or downtown waterfront areas. Yes,
I have a question for you, which is on this slide. So what is the most helpful way for VPD to receive this information? Like, do you prefer 911 or 311 calls so that you can record it in sort of this type of data? Or is there a more efficient, like, what's the best way for you all to like allocate your resources effectively and make your decisions?
That's a good question. It's a yes, it is one way for me to, so you're right. I have to decide based on the various amounts of information, various sources, how to best allocate the limited resources of the Vancouver Police Department to effectively serve the community, right? So when community brings me issues, then I have to take those into consideration. And then is it backed up by calls for service? What type of calls for service are these? Are they violent crimes? Is it property crime? Is it more nuisance crime, like noise, quality of life issues? So then, yes, by calling in, it does factor into how VPD's resources are allocated. That is the winter months. I imagine when Q2, when Lieutenant Savage is up here for the next downtown stakeholders meeting, and this would be a different conversation of call volume. You might see that hotspot grow at the waterfront, but probably also for quality of life type issues such as noise complaints, vehicle speeding, traffic violations, and so forth. We're not seeing, as with the hotspot, a lot of the crimes were persons crimes or property crimes, and those were not congregated at the waterfront. But
Sure.
Back to your original question, all of those channels help the person, the lieutenant and the commander. There's my commander here, my chief. We all have these conversations multiple times a week, and then on a larger sense with the office of the chief on a monthly basis, and of how do we best allocate our resources to deal with all the issues. So if you can go through Van PD email, if you talk to your officials, talk to your property managers, and also call 311 for non-emergency issues, and please definitely call 911 for emergency issues. That helps us make the best decisions. Because and that's why we don't just go off of these alone. But just to give you an idea of, people calling the police or calling an officer for an immediate response, this is what we're looking at. Does that answer your question?
That does, yeah, thank you.
We can also draw on historical data that we can look at of trends over years on how to allocate resources best, as well as, and there's times that the data comes in and we're chasing the rabbit, so to speak, that it's delayed because the time that for us to receive it and then translate that into data that we can use and allocate resources, maybe that short-term trend has already changed. So then we're catching up at times. So that's where the historical would be best to factor that in as well.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
So are these essentially crimes? I mean, I've had to call because guys are doing drugs across the street, passing out with heroin, or one guy had a gun and then several police showed up, which I don't, at any rate, and then there's this whole idea of response time. So, I've gone out there with people that have been passed out and then called to say, here's this guy, and then all of a sudden, 20 minutes, 30 minutes later, you guys show up and he's gone by then or whatever. But I mean, is that all incidents like 311? I mean, it's not,
So your question being the correlate, like the relationship between,
myself and,
what you call it and when we respond?
yeah, well, I'm just, right, how to best handle that. I mean, obviously, we had a break-in across the street and that was a big deal, but, with the homeless. And, but, I'm just trying to, obviously a break-in is a crime.
Yes.
That's a deal. And that, man, that had dogs and everything. But other times it's just simple incidences, on your property or near your property, or people camping out all day long, sleeping on the sidewalk, or, whatever. And how to best handle that. Is that a 311 thing?
Oh, if it's non-emergency 311, emergency 911.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously it's not an emergency. Obviously the guy with the gun, that was an emergency.
But even when you call 311, each call is prioritized by dispatch with a number. So number one being those extreme risk to life types of calls, like person with a gun, a shooting, assault, being with a deadly weapon. We call those toned out calls because it's literally gonna go out tone to all the officers. Like, you need to listen to this and you need to respond.
Where are they being dispatched from?
Cressa, which is located downtown across from the courthouse. It's the community. It does the dispatch systems for fire, all police services in Clark County, and AMR.
No, but I mean the officers. I mean,
Officers.
are they out in patrol cars and
Patrol cars.
they'll sit there and say, who's closest to?
Yes.
Okay.
So what happens is you'll have every call that comes into 311 or 911, regardless of what it is. You could call in a shooting on 311. They're still going to categorize it as priority one.
Yeah.
So that's going to get the immediate response. Everything else under that is going to be, as far as dispatching officers to it, that's going to be based on priority. So until all the ones and twos and threes are clear, you're not going to see the officers in that area getting dispatched to kind of the lower priority calls of 4 and 5. And when I say lower priority, I don't mean in importance. I just mean they're categorized by kind of risk of person and property.
Okay.
Any other questions for me?
We do have a comment in the chat. Someone says, Dara Alexander says, the response of the accident at Relevant last night was immediate. Many thanks to the first responders. They were on site under 2 minutes.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, we will always respond as quickly as possible to any kind of life safety issue. So thank you for that. I'll tap it off to NPO Lee Gelsinger here if you have any questions for him.
Sir, to the last one, just to elaborate, there is an officer specifically assigned 24/7 to each of our beats. But when those calls like the burglary occurs, you might get diverted from taking calls in your beat across the city to assist other officers.
Right.
And so where some calls pull resources from east to west or District 1 or 2, it does unfortunately create delays. But just so you know, there are officers assigned just specifically to handle calls.
Do they patrol during the day, just sort of see what's going on? And
yeah, absolutely. We're not stationary, so.
because, obviously I don't see a lot of incidents down at the waterfront, but I'm not down there at 2:00 in the morning either. And then you have we've been noticing recently, it depends on if I got my earplugs in, the street noise, the racing going around or spinning around downtown. I don't know where they're doing it, but I'm assuming that's not legal. And, but I mean, I don't get up in the middle of the night to call.
Right. No, we certainly I get a lot of emails actually that don't get 311 or 911 calls.
Yeah.
Sometimes over the weekend, of residents informing me of racing that had occurred 48 hours ago.
Yeah.
And so I pass that information up my chain of command, and then if resources are needed for, special overtime duties for enforcement, or there is a focus or an emphasis on a specific thing such as racing at the waterfront, they can make that, I guess, determination.
Now, your top blue line on the offenses, is that Mill Plain? So,
No plan.
okay. So I don't see, all the encampment that was taking place, I'm assuming that had to be incident after incident.
Yeah, and I'm sure that Ms. Spinelli's gonna go over the Found Wall project.
Well, this is also specifically just beat 11, which ends at Mill Plain,
Mhm.
and then you can see 12. So,
Okay, well,
and so some of that may have been captured in the B12.
I'm just trying to say, geez, is this relevant or is it, yeah, okay. I mean, I'm not up there. I'm closer to here, so.
And one thing I want to talk about that Officer Gelsinger said that's important is you are the eyes and ears in your community. And there typically will be maybe 1 or 2 police officer near or in the area. So the more that you call in with more detailed information, that allows us to gather that as well and say, again, how can we direct those resources? And that's where it's really important that you report what you're hearing, what you're seeing, especially even like noise complaints. Because if you hear that, because if street racing starts, guess what? It's contagious.
Oh, yeah.
More will come, right? So if the earlier that we can get on that and hear from you that this is happening, that's very helpful.
Yeah.
I don't want to discourage anybody from calling in.
Well, I remember the guy with a gun, and it was my
Yeah.
place and the place next door. And when they finally showed up, at one point he had left. So I know that the police said, okay, we'll see if we can go find the guy. And then the other time, Terry came out. He said, oh, I'll go get my gun. And then we'll see who's gonna do what. But anyway, so it's not the same every time, but
Yeah, I can also add on to that as well. Many of our traffic infractions, the officers have to actually witness it to be able to take an enforcement action. So if it's occurring and nobody calls us, but then we're hearing about it through email or through word of mouth or whatever days later,
Yep.
we don't have the ability to do anything about what happened then. We can strategize to how to prevent it in the future, but I would ask that when these things are occurring, give us a call.
yeah, the traffic thing, God, I can't tell you how many, they don't even know what the speed limit is with a lot of these guys. Okay.
Great questions from the audience. Are there any other questions for these 2 panelists before we move on? And no questions too small, so we'd be happy to answer.
Is there room in the budget to have foot patrol officers on our hotspots in the waterfront as we enter our summer season?
I would love it.
Yes.
I think that there's so much that Foot Patrol can do. There isn't right now. But I think we think alike. Because it builds that personal relationship that you don't even get on a bike, and you see more when you're walking. And it's more of that engagement piece that's so important, and engagement with everybody in the community. And so, yeah, I wish.
I can add on to that. Last year, up until November, we were doing emphasis patrol. So basically, these were officers. We don't have the staffing to permanently staff somebody in like a foot patrol position there, but Friday, Saturday, and Sundays, we were bringing them in on overtime to provide enhanced enforcement for downtown and the waterfront area.
That's how we might see it again. It'd be in a pretty limited capacity. But it's certainly effective.
I'll just like tap onto that. I work at the farmer's market. We see a lot of officers park.
Mm-hmm.
You can just take a lap around the park, take a lap through a busy area. And it's sort of a annotated foot patrol. But
Yes.
yeah, it is great community building and it gives them a chance for people to have a conversation with them or whatever. So that's great.
Yeah, I agree. It'll be part of any operations plan for any enhanced detail. I speak to kind of the partnerships of like, if you call out noise complaints, you don't see an immediate reaction. For the parking garage, I'm sure you're all aware of the new waterfront parking garage. It works like a megaphone. If a car is revving their engine in there, it radiates throughout the entire waterfront downtown area. So we got numerous reports once it opened because, like I said, street racers will find where they can make noise. We were able to work with Graymore and their parking management company to assess their situation with them because it was obviously affecting the residents down at the waterfront and downtown. They were able to say that, we're not at full capacity. We can shut down the top section, which was the biggest problem for them. And then also our downtown emphasis, the overtime patrol we had, I was able to check in with them and make sure that, hey, we can get these problems before there's 100 cars in there. We can get when the first 5 start coming in there, start taking enforcement action. And so it's little steps like that that come from all of the you letting us know about the issues, and then we can take steps. And it might take a few weeks to kind of coordinate all of that, but just down the line, all of your input helps us craft kind of our response.
I have one other quick question. You know, I've been down here, I've lived down here since 1997. So it's changed. It used to be just the little gals running around giving tickets. Now it looks like armed policemen that are out there patrolling, the meters and all this other stuff. And I know that when they had the situation down by the share house and the rest of it, those girls wouldn't go down there to do anything. So are those people police officers? They look like it. The parking, they're the enforcement. Okay. Are they communicated, with, two-way communications with you or anybody else that they could call? Because obviously their eyes, they're all over the place downtown.
I can speak a little bit to that. So Chris Harder, Deputy Director of Economic Prosperity and Housing. So our parking services team, our enforcement officers are part of our department. They are sworn officers, probably, I'm not in the public safety realm in this regard, probably very differently sworn than VPD. And they do have access to communicate with VPD in certain scenarios.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, they're all over the place.
Yeah.
On a daily basis, and I'm assuming they see stuff that's out of line.
Yeah, there are 8 of them, usually 4
Yes, in pairs
at a time. So they're just dedicated to the downtown, basically beat 11 a little bit different.
Yeah.
There, but yes, they are also eyes and ears.
Yeah.
They have a different role than obviously police.
No, I
officers.
got that. But I just, when you're talking about engagement,
Mhm.
because the last thing you want to do as a citizen is engage them. I engaged a couple of guys once, and he chased me around the block for 4 or 5 times. I want to know, because I wasn't a policeman that was hassling him.
Mhm.
I was a citizen. And I said, "Oh, that's the last time I'm doing that." Oh, I'm calling now.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. We do have a question in the audience from Dara Alexander. Can you plan now for the 3rd weekend of July when the cruise does burnouts at every intersection? Cruise the Cut.
Actually, we're having conversations about Cruise the Cube or Cruise the Get with various city departments to see, and a potential organizer for that event to plan for it now. So yes, those conversations are ongoing. It's still in the planning stage. No permit, has been sought for or granted this time. But those conversations are, what does it look like? How do all the departments respond to this? And how do we make it an orderly event? Because the last few years, it's not been a sanctioned event, but people have shown up. And DPD's had to respond, but kind of behind the, without the pre-planning that we're doing this year. So this year, we're planning on a very orderly response to it, so we'll be prepared.
Thank you. All right, any other questions from the audience? One thing I do want to announce is at the VDA, we focus a lot on prevention through design. So we're doing a lot of lighting projects in downtown. For what it's worth, we hope it increases the perception of safety at least. And when I look at this map, it's interesting to me as we identify future projects. At 6th and Washington, we hope to do a lighting project at Platt Pantry. And we just completed a lighting project at the Slocum House in partnership with the Farmers Market. So from the VDA side, if there's any areas that may feel unsafe, and if there's anything that we can do from a placemaking perspective to enhance the perception of safety or activation, feel free to reach out to us. We'll definitely consider it. Okay. Well, thank you, Lieutenant Simmons, Neighborhood Police Officer Gelsinger, and thank you to those who joined us today, Assistant Chief of Police Darren McShay and Commander Dumas. I'm going to pass it off to Jamie Spinelli and Corporal Mativa to give a homelessness update.
It's gonna be just Jamie today. He's off the hook.
Just Jamie.
I can't. Chairs. Hey, thanks for having me today. So I'm gonna give as short as possible because homelessness is always a very long topic, at least typically. Just kind of a broad overview of where we are right now as it relates to homelessness. So I give this at least every year, which is why you see a lot of years of data. Where we are is underneath the red arrow. What's notable is that for the first time since 2018 in 2024, unsheltered homelessness is less than sheltered homelessness. So for many years, we've had more people experiencing homelessness outside than inside any of our shelters because we have not had enough shelter. We still don't have enough shelter, but starting in 2021, shelters started growing. We started adding safe stay communities and are working on another shelter project now. The county has added a couple shelters because homelessness is just growing at a rate that we cannot keep up with housing, quite frankly, and it's been doing that for a long time. So we're trying to get people inside into safe, supported places to help them end their homelessness. But so this is just kind of a snapshot over time to show you where we're at. Does it not just go automatically? Oh, okay. Okay, every year, Clark County, in conjunction with Council for the Homeless, coordinates a point in time count where people are counted either in shelter or transitional housing where they are. Or there's a large group of outreach workers and volunteers who go out and count people who are living unsheltered. And these are some of the results of that from January of last year. And we actually saw some good things. We had 13% more people experiencing homelessness in shelters versus outside of shelters. 47% more chronically homeless in shelters than the year before, which is a massive improvement. People who are experiencing chronic homelessness are defined as they are defined by that if they have experienced homelessness for 12 consecutive months or 4 or more times in a 2-year period and have some kind of disability. So these are folks who have more significant challenges, barriers than others might have, and have been homeless for a long time. And they are often a little bit more difficult to convince to come into shelter. So having this many more in shelters is a really good thing. A total of 669 people were counted outside, but we had an overall reduction in chronic homelessness, like period, both sheltered and sheltered, of 6% and 36% decrease in chronic unsheltered homelessness. Really, the place that we didn't make any gains was in unsheltered families. We had 43% more unsheltered families last year, so families with children, than the year prior. Uh-oh, wrong button. Oh, there we go. So one of the things, I had to cut this really short, so I didn't put a slide on here, but you all got a handout. Hopefully it looks like this. So in response to the numbers that we've seen over the last decades, but particularly the last 5 years, the city of Vancouver has responded to homelessness in a variety of ways, and it's across multiple departments. But this little one pager that Com's put together gives you a pretty good snapshot because homelessness, it's very multifaceted because they're human beings that are experiencing it, right? So there's all kinds of, there's a variety of impacts and there's a variety of solutions. So one of those things is the Homeless Assistance and Resource Team, the HEART team, that has now grown to 9 people. Is that right? We're at 9 now? 9. 10 if you count me, but I never get to go out anymore. So they're the ones who are out there doing a lot of the just very basic engagement, connecting people to services. But we also have 2 police officers on our team that help with the enforcement as needed. And then we've got somebody from Public Works who does a lot of the camp assessment for cleanup and sanitation needs. I believe last year we cleared 400 tons, a little over 400 tons of solid waste off of public property, solely related to unsheltered homelessness. There's more than that in the city, but it's a lot. We since 2021 have established 4 safe stay communities. Those little villages. We've got one a couple blocks north of here. I'll go into some outcomes shortly. They're right there on the screen. We've got the Safe Park for folks who are living in their vehicles. Talk and Trash also does sanitation, like cleanup stuff, not directly related to homelessness specifically, just litter pickup throughout the city. Lots of housing, which I'm sure Chris could probably talk about better than I could. Lots of housing programs, housing development, community court, which is where we try to kind of filter folks who are living outside too, who are maybe a little reluctant to engage with services. So they're cited into community courts, and then they have the ability to engage with services as a way to get their charge, which is typically a very minor charge, vacated. Is that the term? What is it called? Dropped, dismissed. It's as it never happened. That's what it is. And then a variety of other kind of support services, medical, mail, etc. And these on the screen are outcomes as of February, the end of February, for the Safe Stay communities specifically. So we've served over 400 people at all 4 safe stays, which includes the 87 residents that were there that day. 168 of those were housed, permanent housing, and shockingly, it was actually kind of shocking to me that more than half of them were housed without any kind of ongoing subsidy, meaning they had lived outdoors, many of them chronically homeless. They came inside, they stabilized, they got connected to the things they needed to be connected to, and instead of having to continue to wait on a list for supportive housing, they were able to kind of self-resolve and get employment, move out on their own without any need for case management or rental subsidy. That's actually a pretty high number. Average length of stay, because housing is what it is about 175 days, which again is actually not that bad. And what we've seen, which hopefully, I'm going to move this closer. Hopefully the downtown area is starting to experience this at Site 3, which is the one a couple blocks from here. But when I looked at the data over time for all 4, Safe Stays 1 and 2, which are over in the Fourth Plain corridor, and then one a little further east, they would see kind of a ramp up in emergency services, largely medical, not so much law enforcement, and then kind of a drop that has sustained, which makes a lot of sense because people who are living outside typically utilize emergency services for just kind of regular medical care versus primary care, like preventive maintenance, like we all do. So it kind of shows that that's working. And so we did see that kind of climb at the beginning of sites 3 and 4 and started to kind of level off, which means people are stabilizing and they are connecting to the things that we want them to connect to: primary care, ongoing services, et cetera, which reduces the kind of strain that kind of usage places on kind of all of our emergency services, right? Okay. This is actually the part that I'm most excited about. In addition to sheltering people, helping them stabilize, and really just getting people kind of reconnected to community, these sites have served as almost like a almost like an apprenticeship or like a feeder for it's workforce development is what it is really. So the majority of the people that work at the Safe State communities have their own lived experience with homelessness, mental health, substance use, but recovery from all of those things. And as people have gone through these sites, certainly there are a number of them who have wanted to do kind of the same work. Often when people have some kind of a purpose, they feel better in life. And so this is a way that they feel like they can give back as well as just kind of move their own lives forward. So we have at least 20 former and current Safe Stay residents who are right now working in either other Safe Stays or other shelters or homeless services here in town. Almost 25% of one organization, Outsiders In, they're the ones who run the downtown site as well as the first site out east. Almost a quarter of their current staff recently graduated from a Safe Stay community or another shelter locally. So it's creating a great deal of kind of transitional and supported employment for folks who need that. If you experience homelessness for a good bit of time, as I mentioned, you pick up some barriers, and then it can be very difficult to get a job anywhere. Not everybody's super excited about hiring people with maybe some of those backgrounds. So this is a way to do that, get back in the workforce, and then create kind of a new history for yourself. And then we have our heart team, Sheila specifically, who works for the Public Works Department for our team and does the cleanup. She has a small kind of temp crew, and she is able to kind of coach some folks who are ready for employment and living in one or any of the Safe Stays, and bring them onto the crew so that it basically comes with like a built-in mentor, but it's paid employment. It's temporary, but it's paid employment. And they go out and help with just kind of the very basic, like on the spot. So not large encampment cleanups, but they were at Leverage Park, I think like a month or so ago, and somebody had dumped like 30 tires into the creek. Not homelessness related, but it was there, and they had trucks, so they picked it all up. And so having that kind of rapid response, one, is helpful, but two, being able to employ people who would like to get back into the workforce is also very helpful. Bridge shelter. Okay, so I gave you another one. This one. This slide deck typically has like 20 slides on it. So in addition to the Safe Stay communities, the Safe Stays are great, and they add a type of shelter to our system that did not exist previously, right? The Safe Stays they are non-congregate individual shelter units that are able to serve people who either couldn't or wouldn't access the prior shelter system. So those are incredible, and those are probably going to be around for a while because they feel that need. They are small though, and they don't touch the numbers that we need as really, I showed earlier, we have like over 600 people countywide experiencing unsheltered homelessness. And it would be very expensive to build, dozens of more. We don't even have the land for dozens of more Safe Stay communities. So the city is working to build a larger, more congregate shelter, which we're calling the Bridge Shelter. And that is because it is intended to bridge someone from homelessness to housing. So this is kind of a broader vision for the shelter. But this thing has the updates on it, which is kind of where we are now. We hired a shelter operator, which is Do Good Multnomah. They are also the operator for Kagan's Village, which is our fourth Safe Stay community up on the north of Maine. The location was approved. So the old Nadanov property over there, kind of near the mall, was approved for usage in December. We hired an architect, and we are moving super rapidly through design. We have finished kind of phase 1 of design. We are now on into phase 2, which is like design development. And we're shooting for a summer 2026 opening, which to me sounded like too long, but I'm not a developer. But what I'm told is that is ridiculously fast, and they're like, good luck to you. But I think we'll get it done. So I think probably the more innovative piece of this shelter is that given that fentanyl crisis is surely hitting the homeless community just as it has the house community nationwide, not just here, there is to be a medication assisted treatment program embedded, so integrated inside the shelter, which does not exist anywhere else in Clark County for sure. And that's to make sure that for those who do need it, it is immediately available, because that is your best bet for combating this this drug or addiction to this drug, is immediate access to treatment. That will likely be with Columbia River Mental Health. And then it'll just be a very service-rich environment where people have the things that they need. They can stay 24/7. And it'll have a commercial kitchen. I think that update's on here. That's kind of new. I think those are really the big ones, I think. Oh, winter shelter. For anybody who doesn't know. As part of the bridge shelter, because we were trying to rapidly expand shelter overall, we opened some winter shelter in December using city facilities. So one at what I always call the old library, which is now the Arts Hub, and one at a building that we own on Checklaw that the fire marshal's office used to be out of. So those housed individuals, couples, families with children, prioritized families with children, but also just anybody who was vulnerable. And they served well over 200 people throughout the winter at those shelters. And I think total expanded the shelter capacity by at least 60 beds. And they were full all winter long. All of our shelters are full every single day. So we need more. That's it. Okay. I don't know how long that took me. Was I under the 15?
Yeah, you're great. Thank you, Jamie.
Sure.
I was looking if there's questions on the online chat. Are there any questions from the audience?
2013 to now, we've only had a 40% increase in shelter capacity and an 800% increase in need. Am I doing my quick math correct? From 200 to 700 for need and only from 500 to 700 for capacity.
What year are you from last year to this year?
From 2013 to 2020.
Oh, 2013.
So, yeah. Quick and down your journey math, we've had almost 400% increase in need and only a 40% increase in capacity.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I will also say within our shelter system, so some of what you're seeing, the part of the sheltered numbers there, those are people who are not just in emergency shelter. That also includes transitional housing, right? As far as shelter for adult individuals, right, which is largely what you see outside is adult individuals. So not families with kids. We have had up until 2020 or 2021, we had fewer than 100 beds countywide. And well, you can see what the numbers have looked like of people who need that. So yeah, massive disparity between need and what we had available.
And then the compliment was, I'm here in my capacity as the president of the Detroit Neighborhood Association, which is downtown. I'm generally hearing compliments that just last year we're continuing to see improvements in the livability issues from doorway camping. We still have some hot spots. We still the battle's still being fought, but a lot of it seems to be associated with the downtown safe state. That seems to be really helping take the edge off some of the worst of the behavior.
Good. I'm glad all the sites have done a really incredible job, but I am particularly impressed with the downtown location. They have gotten a lot of the kind of the tougher folks to engage with. They took the large majority of people who were camping along the sound wall and kind of all at once almost. And most of them have stayed and they're really doing incredible work there. Like, and you would have no idea, right? From the outside, it's very calm, very quiet. Yeah.
Thank you. We have a question in the back and we'll move to you.
So I'm more interested in number 3, obviously the downtown one. So I see where they, I didn't realize this, it was supposed to be for 2 years with a 1-year option to extend the safe. And I guess that's been given. And you just mentioned that the safe home, villages are gonna have to be around for quite some time. So is there, I mean, what happens after year 3? Does it get torn down? Does it move somewhere else downtown? Because as you said, there's been an improvement, which, you know, is right across the street from where I live. And I can say that that's true. But I was just curious as to what's next, if in fact that does no longer exist.
Sure. Yeah, so when we started piloting these, they were done under temp use permits, which does give you 2 years, 3 years. Well, it's 1 year with the option of 2 renewals, 1-year renewals. In December, the council voted to on an emergency order extending the life of sites 1 and 2, so not the downtown location, but the first 2.
Okay.
So that we could come up with some plans for the future of this program as a whole, so for every site. Because homelessness is not going away anytime, soon. Just a couple months ago, I went back to council to see if they were interested in keeping this program around long-term, and they expressed that they were. So right now I'm working with the planning department to find like a mechanism, a permitting mechanism, a land use mechanism for keeping these around longer term. And that's just like as a whole, not necessarily for any individual site, because they each have some individual differences. The downtown location, that property is actually owned by a private property owner who's letting us use it. So ultimately, he would decide when he wanted his property back, which we of course give to him. If we don't have a place to move it to, and that gentleman would like his property back, then that one, would probably just go away. Or we could potentially expand some of the other sites that we have. And kind of split the units up between existing sites and have them grow a little bit. We intentionally kept these sites very, very small, really to kind of introduce the concept to the neighborhoods and the rest of the community, and just kind of get our feet under us, figure out what we don't know. And I think we feel very confident now that we do know how to operate these, and we know how to operate them well. And so adding, another 7 units to a site is not going to, one, it wouldn't require any like expansion in budget in a major way because you're just scaling up. And so it'd be, difference would be negligible.
So how soon could he say, I want my property?
So 3 years after we opened that one. So that one just opened in December of 2023. So its 3 years would be up 3 years from that. We just celebrated 1 year in December.
So we got 2 more years to go?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And has he expressed any desire to let you continue, or has he expressed a desire to do something after the 3 years?
He's been supportive of us continuing to use it.
Because if that went away, then the camping would come back, the 1,000-foot barrier.
It could potentially, but I would also say, it's in the middle of downtown. I would imagine somebody would want to develop it into housing or something.
Oh, no, I mean, we fought this thing like crazy, and I've got I've got a lot of nice things to say about it now. But, yeah, believe me.
Good.
Okay.
All right, thank you, sir. Question in the front?
Yeah, so also a compliment. I own a property right next to it, across the street on Daniels and Evergreen, and I haven't had any issues. In fact, I feel like it's better than it was before. So, I did have a clarifying question. There was talk about how much homelessness has gone up, and then how much need has gone up, and the disparity about that. And you mentioned in 2013 we only had 100 beds. How many do we have now? Because I didn't in this chart, I don't see a need. The need shown. I just see that we have, if you add the 700 with the 680, there's about 1,400 people that are experiencing homelessness, whether it's sheltered or unsheltered. Mm-hmm. So if you take 2013, that was about 700. So from 700 to 1,400, we have an 100% increase in a 10-year period, which honestly, I thought it was a lot worse than that, which is great. But How much beds do we now have? And with the bridge shelter, if we include that, how much space do we have now? So.
Total beds countywide is close to 400. I'd have to look and do the math on all of them. But close to 400 total beds. Countywide, we do still have 600 people living outside. The bridge shelter, probably gonna have close to 120-ish with room to expand. At least during severe weather.
With the safe stays,
Mhm.
600 to 400 plus, so about 600. So we still need a lot more shelters.
Well, we need a lot more housing. Because without housing, then people just sit in shelters, right? And they don't have anywhere to exit to, or at least some, right? So it's both. We're trying to mitigate. One of the slides that I did not include on this was the number of deaths amongst the homeless community. Last year was at least 54, and that's like nearly double from the year before. And half of those from last year and the year before were due to overdose. So, in addition to just people living outside, the impacts of people living outside are significant, which is why we declared the emergency in the first place. So what I do in my department and what my whole team does is really address the impacts of unsheltered homelessness while also working together with EPH, with people from the housing department, to work on more permanent long-term solutions so that we have a bit of a pipeline that's supported versus just you're waiting outside until maybe one day we've got enough units for everybody.
Great comments and questions. Any other questions from the audience or the virtual audience online? Marcus?
Speaking as the president of the neighborhood association, I've been in text bringing up concern about the interplay between WashDOT and city of property for the entryway at 7th and C. It seems to be every time WashDOT cleans up a camp, that they just move 100 feet. There's hundreds of pounds of trash being removed a day. There's so the has to bring up that concern. Is there, we as the city, but the community can work better with WashDOT to keep that area at least reasonable, presentable.
So we actually have a very good working relationship with WashDOT. Probably one of the better relationships that I know between a municipality and the state doing this kind of work in particular. The reality is everyone's kind of resource limited, right? Like they have to have resources to do the cleanup work and the crew to do the work. And certainly this downtown area is not their only work. They're more regional. So I know that they kind of prioritize their work based on resource availability and then just also the impact similar to what we do. 205 Mill Plain is actually a very hot spot. It does get a lot more attention from WashDOT than, maybe this space. But certainly we do work together. We schedule work together. My crew works with theirs a great deal.
Thank you. I know it's just an ongoing frustration with the downtown community, and it's
Sure.
not an easy battle. But that particular spot with the campers having to cross the off ramp.
Yeah.
There's been some issues. But
Yeah.
I don't think the average person understands the volume of trash WashDOT's picking up.
Yeah.
And see what's left behind each day.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Jamie, I just want to thank you for your leadership and for the hard work of your team. It is just so nice that other communities we hear about don't have as many positive things happening.
Yeah.
And some hope that we really are helping people. And I really think that's because of you and your leadership. So thank you so much.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I've gone to a couple conferences this year and this happens, every year when I go to conferences. I go to these conferences related to homelessness and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna find the solution, right? The thing that we're not doing. And every single year, we are doing more than everything that I hear about in other communities. Every single conference I go to. I take away nuggets of information like, oh, that's a great process for this thing. But we really are kind of far and above, which is a great thing, a little frustrating because it's like, gosh, surely somebody's got an idea that we haven't thought of. We just need more. We need more of what we're doing.
Great comment. Any other questions from the audience or the audience online? Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Jamie and team. We appreciate your time. Great update. So just as a reminder, the downtown stakeholders, we do a annual survey and we are responsive to the community's preferred topics. The number one topic was homelessness and community public safety. So that is today's meeting. Upcoming meetings include community conversations around rapid growth, the I-5 bridge project, Main Street Promise project, crime and drugs, business support, city actions that are reducing impact on the environment, disaster recovery. So we encourage you to stay participating in these meetings, and we appreciate you engaging today by joining us in person and online to help inform and drive the direction of downtown. I'm going to pass it off to Chris, and he'll touch on the next topic.
So next, so this would be June 17th. The next topic will be the city's first ever economic development strategy. We came to this group one or two times over the last 12, 14 months, sharing some data, what we learned about our economy, previewing some draft strategies. Council will consider a resolution to adopt this coming Monday. So we'll be presenting that strategy. A lot of it focuses on the importance of small businesses in our community. We know downtown is a center for that. So we'll make sure to emphasize some of those findings and some of the programs that we have teed up over the next 5 years. Is that the only topic? Thanks. So far, the only topic. So come if you want to come with a lot of questions, feel free to come with a lot of questions, unless we add a second topic to that date as well. So.
And of course, we always encourage the audience to continue to engage with us via email or in person. If you have any topics that come of mind that we should consider for future meetings, we would love to consider them. So thank you everyone again for joining us today, and I hope you enjoy the sunshine that we're experiencing this week. Thank you.
Remind me your name again. Katie.